Welcome to this place where your world and our world intersect. It's our clearing in the forest where we can all leave the world behind for a while and ponder the meaning of life and the nature of this force you call the law of attraction. Last week, our discussions began with the two powerful thought exercises that can lead you into the creation of what you want, choosing more to feel good and thinking more about what you want. Today we'll start from the beginning and look at who you are and the power you have to make new choices about you, about life, and about everything. There's a verse by Rumi, a mystic of the Sufi Muslim tradition, that we would translate as follows. Beyond all concept of right and wrong, there is a place. There is no you or me or even anywhere in that place. There is only love. Rumi was able to see beyond the story that was Islam and an omnipotent God. Today we want to encourage you to see beyond your story. We want you to know of that special place that Rumi describes and begin to find it for yourself. We want you to know who you really are. We'll come back to that shortly. We all have a story. That story creates us even as we create it. Your story defines you and the physical and non-physical worlds that surround you. There is no right story and no wrong story. Each story is unique and valid. There are, of course, parts of your story that match parts of the story of others. Those are the intersection points where you merge briefly and then separate. Those intersections are episodes in what appears to be a solid, contiguous world, a world with sequential time, a world that you share with everybody else. But your world is a moment-by-moment virtual reality created by you. You are the thought and the thinker of the thought. By thought, you create everything. New thought creates new everythings. This is the simple truth of it all. You might ask, if it's only virtual, how come it feels so real? To answer that, we need to look at two aspects of your story, the physical aspect and the non-physical aspect. From a physical aspect, we get the apparent realness of it. If you bump your knee, it hurts. If you step in front of a bus, you die. From a physical perspective, it's seemingly apparent that there's one version of reality. From a physical perspective, there's a physical you dealing with physical things and other physical people. There can be no doubt that from a physical perspective, you're as real as it gets. But note, the operative words here are from a physical perspective. Who or what are you beyond that perspective? What are you really? In the pre-Abraham days of what this one calls his past, he spent considerable time studying with Deepak Chopra. Some time back, he was watching Deepak promoting his book, The Future of God, and he heard these words: everything in the entire universe has a single source. Your innermost being is that source. Learn to view the world out there as a response to the signals from in here, as he pointed to his chest. From our friends Abraham, you are liquid love in physical bodies, wanting more than life itself, because it is life itself, to adore the vessel that's you, through which this source energy flows. You are God You are source, you are creator. In other words, the essence of you, the eternal core of you, the only permanent aspect of you is the liquid love part of you, the God part of you. The only truly real aspect of you is your consciousness. You have a here and now consciousness that's engaging in this story of yours. But that here and now part, like the fingers of a hand, is an always connected extension of the higher part of your consciousness. And that, in turn, is an always connected extension of all that is. And yes, we know we just described you in 3 parts because it's a useful device to help you understand the totality of you. But we encourage you to know that, in truth, your consciousness is a swirling, ever-flowing energy stream. In your physical space-time game, you have shapes and beginnings and ends. And so you're comfortable describing things in clumps and having levels. You talk about a 3rd dimension and a 4th and a 5th and so on. And some of you describe what each of these is and how you might graduate from a lower to a higher level. But in non-physical, there are no beginnings and ends. There are no levels or shapes. How you describe all these non-physical components is just your story. These are the non-physical aspect of your story. By thought, you create everything. And new thought creates new everythings, including your non-physical everythings. So here you are in the chapter of your story called Life on Earth. You wrote it, and you chose to be the director and the leading actor in the movie version. Of course, it feels real to you. It feels so real because it's an exact mirror of you, its creator. That context of yours is always going to feel as real as anything can feel. So real that many of you get swept up by it. You get engaged with it to the extent that you see it as part of the eternal truth about you and what you're doing here. As many schools of spiritual thought do, you then dissect this reality for clues about your divine origins and your purpose for existence. By its very nature, you infer that there must be an entity or godlike creature that creates and maintains all of this and has a design for your life and everything else. If your story is similar and it feels good to you, if it answers your questions, if it is for you a joyous space to explore as your life's context, then we say embrace it. That story is truth for you. Our particular intention is to come from a storyless place, because the extent to which we can do this is the extent to which we expose the divine simplicity there is at the core of it all. It is, if you like, the theory of everything. If the idea that you have the power to be, do, or have anything rings your bells, if you are wanting to move beyond unanswerable questions and divine mysteries, then we are here to eagerly support you on that journey and encourage you to know that you are the creator of everything in your world. No, it doesn't take 20 years of meditation in a monastery. You don't have to engage in a 365-day study course because, dear ones, if you have to do that, force fit the truth of who you are into some sort of reconciliation with the physical one world. And that's impossible. We've used before the story of a plane trip in 2 versions. One is where you mess it up with bad vibration and end up missing your plane and having to return home. And in the other, you realize you're feeling bad. You take the time and focus to get to a good feeling place, and you have a delightful journey. In this version, at the end of the day, you're enjoying a good meal in your hotel. Can you see that this is a different version of physical reality? Maybe it's not hugely different, or maybe it is. But the point is, it's different. Can you see, therefore, that this concept of physicalness cannot possibly be as real and constant and inevitable as you are making it out to be? And so here we are. Once again, the subject of how much choice do you really have? And what is there in all of this that we can offer as practical guidance that will help you make choices that are more in line with what you want? Let's start with some of Deepak's words. Everything in the entire universe has a single source. We agree. Perhaps here's where we diverge. We would describe that original single source not as your innermost being, but as simply all levels of you, of which one is the conscious thinking entity that is engaged with us here. Some call your now consciousness your ego, as being worldly or greedy or self-centered, and as the source of all problems. We say it's just you. It's the part of you that makes belief choices about everything. Then you store them away in what we could loosely call your subconscious, or as Deepak describes it, your superconscious. These are all labels, after all, for what is you and the greater you. And there are no compartments with boundaries and borders in any of this. Whatever we call it, it contains that vast tapestry of expectations that defines you and your context. It's your story. We submit that you are all seekers of peace and power, fun and freedom. You all choose to be here in this focused space-time reality for the joy of creating in this leading-edge context. You are the entity that chooses. There is no grand plan. There is nothing you're supposed to be doing. It's up to you. No choice is more or less worthy, more or less right than any other. There's only what feels good and what does not. When you are feeling good or bad, your infallible emotional guidance system is telling you that you are heading towards or away from what you want. Nothing, therefore, can possibly be more important than feeling good. Of course, by the very nature of who you are, there are going to be parts of your story that are not serving you. There are belief choices you made, like you have to struggle, that is, work hard, because money doesn't grow on trees. In a shared one world, you have to deal with all those other people and survive. You have to face reality, possibly the worst advice ever given. And so the list goes on and on. If you want to change your life, how do you override some of those stored belief systems? You make new belief choices, and you align with them throughout that whole stream of consciousness of yours. How do you do that? Well, we're going to be a bit repetitive here, but we want to make a point. It starts with being aware of how you feel and not settling for anything less than feeling good, and then deciding what you want now and stepping mentally into that version of so-called reality. It proceeds with being aware of how you feel and not settling for anything less than feeling good, and then deciding what you want now and stepping mentally into that version of so-called reality. And it ends with being aware of how you feel and not settling for anything less than feeling good, and then deciding what you want now and stepping mentally into that version of so-called reality. So what choice do you really have? Beyond one, that you are a timeless, spaceless extension of the collective consciousness of all that is, and beyond two, the law of attraction always provides what matches your beliefs, you choose everything, whether wanted or unwanted. And let's just offer a word of caution here on making sure that what you're choosing is more of the positive things and not less of the negative things, because you cannot choose less of anything. Whatever you put your attention on will grow bigger in your life. As a technique to lift people's thinking, this one used to often ask, what would you do if I gave you $1 million? Many people would answer with something like, the first thing I'd do would be to pay off the house mortgage. Can you see that vibrationally this is asking for less mortgage payments, which means more mortgage payments, please. One of our members, when asked what it would feel like to have her wishes granted, used the word relief. Now, the words are unimportant, of course. It's the feeling that counts. But if the word relief feels like relief from something, then it's the something that's being amplified. This week, Kathy wanted freedom, a worthy aspiration for you all. But what is the thought? Is it freedom from that which is not wanted, or freedom to do all those wonderful new things you've been wanting to do? The difference can be subtle, but it's huge. So be sure you're creating what you want. As always, if you are, you'll feel really good. Mike Dooley's universe described it this way this week. Time for a little refresher on manifesting change, parking spots, and a new six-figure business. Think about it as if it were already done. Note the already done part. Keep showing up, doing all you can every day in every way until already done. Note the keep part. For complicated cases, like when dealing with invisible limiting beliefs, negative friends, or staring down adversity, follow the exact same steps. You've got it made. So there's a conscious and deliberate thinking component to making new choices. Then, since we've been thinking of Deepak here today, let's take a little time here to talk about getting quiet and going within. When you think about those trains of thought you all have, one after another, think of the point where you switch trains. It seems as though your thinking is continuous, but remember, you're creating everything here. So you can also think of there being a gap between those different trains. At first, that gap may appear to be non-existent. Choose to think of it instead as being very small. Then choose to allow yourself to first be aware of it and then to step into it. As you do that, it expands. At first, it might seem impossible. But if you get quiet and be persistent and patient and generous with yourself, you can do it. Let's try it here right now. Of course, we'll be talking to you and you'll be thinking about that. So we'll pause after each suggestion. But if within the practical limits of this meeting you feel a bit rushed, then just let yourself get a sense of it. It's a place you can start from when you're alone and peaceful. First, take a deep breath, get quiet and get comfortable. Observe yourself thinking. What are you thinking? Allow that thought to stop. See if you can experience the gap. Allow yourself first to be aware of it and then to step into it. If you hop on the next train of thought, let go of it. You might find at first you're busy thinking about not thinking. Let that go also. Be easy with this. Be patient with yourself. Good. Do you get a sense that this is Rumi's special place? Many of you ask how you can more effectively make new choices. Well, this is a tool you can use. We say choose to use it. Make yourself a promise right here and now that you will set aside the time to do this. In Deepak's words, the more often you dive into the silent mind, the deeper your intentions will be coming from when you're not meditating. We agree wholeheartedly. There's power in getting reality out of the way. It's a profound place. It helps you loosen your grip on the artifacts of your world, and it thereby strengthens your connection to who you are. As always, take whatever processes work for you, find the ones that feel good to you, and build them into the fabric of your life. Let them become part of who you are. In closing, the law of attraction responds to your thoughts, not to your current reality. When you intervene in the status quo by changing your thought patterns and choosing a new set of expectations, what shows up as reality matches the change. You are the sole author of the screenplay of that movie called Your Life on Earth. So we say, make new choices. Step into a literally new version of you and a new version of your context, a new version of your world will appear magically around you. Do not let reality fool you. You're creating it all. Space and time and people and plants and animals and oceans and tides and, well, you get the idea. We wish you happy new choices. And as always, we are here to support you and answer your questions.